And then, hello everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Ayako Sahara. I'm going to talk about the limitations of Cold War humanitarianism, as the title suggests. So I would like to thank you all for, bear with me, my English, because I'm originally from Japan, and then I'm living in Japan. So it's kind of, nerve-wracking to speak English in front of, all people. But still, I try hard to get to the point of this today's lecture. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about the introduction, and then that the earlier, Long Bui, Professor Bui, talk about the Japan and all that stuff. So, what is, so that kind of the Japanese images that you have, and also like that knowledge about the Japan, like how that, relate to my project, and then what is Cold War and Cold War humanitarianism, and then how that developed. And then, but that had limitations, and then that limitation, brings the paradox of that, and then like the Cold War humanitarianism, how that works in Japan, and then it's kind of getting into the exclusion and inclusion politics of refugees, and then maybe like broader spectrum that for immigrants in all. So the Japan's deputy prime minister then said that in 2020 that Japan is nation of one race. And so, it's like, one race, mono ethnic nation. And then still a lot of politicians and then, right-wingers, likes to say that, but there are so many, diverse population in Japan. And then sometimes people overlook about naturalized citizens that, with diverse background, and then foreign residents as well. Look at the foreign residents percentage in Japan. It's like, 2.3% of the whole population is consisted by the foreign residents right now. So it's like, Japan becoming more diverse, at the same time aging. And then, look at the 65 and, old and more consists like, most like, mostly like 30% of the whole population. So if you, go Japan and see old people everywhere, see, but like they're healthy, but like, declining. And then, so, some people think that like, bring, a lot of immigrants to, Japanese society, will that like reverse that, aging and also like declining population. But at the same time, there is like, politicians like Aso that like really, wants to keep Japan as it is, and then mono-ethnic. But still, Japan accept some, but still, it's not like that, Switzerland, Australia, Germany, UK, France, Italy, US, have a lot of, foreigners move to, and then, try to build life here, right? And so from like 1975 to 2000, I think, 19, U.S. has been received over 3 million refugees. So it's not just like immigrants or like, foreign students, but like refugees that U.S. has been, receiving over the years, right? So they, compared to that scale, Japan, that, hasn't been that humanitarian in a way that the U.S. has been. But at the same time, after 9/11, and also after the Trump administration, the U.S. declined the number of refugees to admit to the United States, and then that is huge change. And then, but compared to that, still, Japan recognition rate is like 0.3%. It's like totally nothing to compare to like Germany, France, US, UK, and stuff. So G7 plus nations being accepted much more than Japan, but still Japan began to accept refugees after 1979, and this is the kind of the point of the talk today. And so why Japan opened the door to refugees, but really small, level, but still it was big change for Japanese society in large. And then to understand that, you need to understand the Cold War context to it. So during the Cold War, the world becomes like, two parts, right? So the one that liberalism and versus communism and socialism. So, like literally, it's like two worlds, and then which side you're gonna be in kind of situation. And so, and also like, moving people from communist countries to liberal countries becomes the kind of the, abstract war, in the sense that people are voting with their foot, so that like, oh, this is more universal, So which side is more universal was the kind of the key element during the Cold War. And then immigration becomes political in that way. And so I call it that rescuing and admitting refugees from communist countries becomes the humanitarian effort, and helping those people is like the things that universal nation states should do kind of thing. I call it Cold War humanitarianism. And then it's huge change compared to the quota system that the US had before. So that the early 20th century, restricted acceptance from outside Western European countries. So, US wanted to keep the country white, in a sense that, certain regions are excluded from immigration to the United States. So that how and why the Cold War humanitarianism created the current situation. So if it's like still, Cold War situation, maybe, we keep, and like we, in a sense, like US, keep accepting refugees because it has to be universal, to accept. And then, nation of immigrants and nation of refugees, but not anymore, in a sense, like, after the war on terror started, and then also the Trump administration started. So in particular, Japan opened the door to the refugees, but still Japanese government kept the number really low. So that, like, what has happened to Japan, like why Japan kept that. And then, simple answer can be racism. But, how can we interpret that Cold War context and then also the racism at the same time? So start with U.S. situation, right? So that after maybe like toward to the end of the World War II, U.S. intervened in the movement of people because Europe devastated from the war, and then so many people, right, in that displaced situation, and more than 8 million people in Europe having really difficulty, so that need to be moved or need to be relocated or because dispersed because of wars and then conflicts, and then so many stuff happened that time. And U.S. wanted to stabilize economies, and for the global power structure to keep to maintain U.S. hegemony. That U.S. Had the European recovery plan, and then in that plan, that the movement of people and then how that replace and relocate was really important issues back then. And so, U.S. government, had a lot of laws to admit refugees and people from countries that U.S. didn't really admit before, but end of World War II, and then what happened in Europe, Asia, U.S. changed the laws to many people to come to the United States because there are so many people that need and so help, right? So maybe some of your family members, like maybe grandmother or grandfather, mother, might be in that population to seek out, and then maybe lucky ones could come to the United States. So so the big change is that the people who have been restricted from entering U.S. Since 1924, that the national quota, and then also Asiatic bird zone, those kind of restricted zone, people couldn't immigrate, could come after the 50s and 60s. So that was a big change, gradually changing. But 1965, that was the huge significant moment in U.S. immigration and refugee history. But even before 1965, these laws allowed people to immigrate to the United States. So, but still, those displaced persons or refugees have that strong image that people who fleeing communism as the refugees, that U.S. should help. That kind of the political concept really remain strong. So that in particular, like Indo-Chinese refugee laws established, but still, to admit those, political refugees, that other, people who have economic problems, those people becomes more like economic migrants, not the refugees, because there are so many refugees. So, you need to prioritize somehow, and that happened, and then so that there's so many people from the south of the border becomes more of the economic migrants, even though there are political reasons, and then people in need for help should be universal, but at the same time the Cold War and then the Cold War concept really remain strong. And then people could not be saved based on that their personal struggle, but more like a national or kind of group or the area reasons to show. So, so there was anti-communist nature of the definition of a refugee emerged through the Cold War humanitarianism, but still there is a strong need to help them. But by the end of the Cold War, U.S. admitted refugees from, and then like after the Cold War, there are a lot of former Soviet Union, people from former Soviet Union nations and stuff. And so it's remains still like, after the end of Cold War, still there is like people who wanted to come, but like, needed to prove their persecution and then like, justification to be refugee is more based on the political persecution basis stuff. So in a way, there are two main paradoxes of Cold War humanitarianism. Humanitarian relief has been greatly reduced after the Cold War because the Cold War created the need to rescue because the people are fleeing from communist country. But if there is no, strong Soviet, Russian nation, then, there isn't like kind of strong reason to help many people. And at the same time, but there are needs to help people. And there are so many non-governmental organizations emerged, through 1960s and then 1970s, because the government tried to rescue a lot of refugees from all over the world, and then the U.S. government cannot do by oneself, so needed the non-governmental people to engage in that. But still, as you see it, from 1980s to through, current, the refugee admission decreased in kind of sharp way. So one example paradox of Cold War humanitarianism is that for example, like non-governmental organization called International Rescue Committee, that the organization assisted the South Vietnam nation building in 1954, but before that, the organization helped refugees from East European bloc and stuff, and then the ILC was kind of the member of the American Friends of Vietnam to stabilize the situation in South Vietnam. But after that, because of the fall of Saigon, the assistance for resettlement of Indo-Chinese refugee was kind of one of the main works that ILC took place in the United States and also like the worldwide. So the refugee resettlement becomes kind of global help and global humanitarian mission to pursue. And still, it working towards a lot of refugees all over the world, and then there is one in Japan too. And so the Trump administration, dramatically dropped the admission of refugee in 2020, and then, but if I look at the Trump administration, it's the U.S. It's wrong, right? So many people opposing the idea of not accepting refugees. So refugees welcome hashtag became popular after that, and then that kind of the constant fighting with the kind of exclusionist thoughts versus more welcoming thoughts. And so there are controversies, and then also going on in the U.S. and also in Japan too. There are many people wants to help refugees during the Cold War, and then what happened to Japan, right? So during the Cold War, and then also now too, Japan is a strong U.S. ally, and at that time, Japan was economically really superb. I can't believe it's now a dollar is 150 yen, but in some time it's 90 yen to $1. So it's a double, and then Japanese yen becoming more and more weak. But at the time, Japan was economically really strong, and then U.S. wanted to Japan to be a part of that humanitarian program to accept refugees. And Carter administration especially tried to pressure Japan to accept refugees, and providing the universality of Cold War humanitarianism, because it's not only U.S. doing, but Asian countries doing together was really important for the U.S. to show that it's not the U.S.'s fault. The Vietnamese people or people from Cambodia, Laos are struggling, but it's more a universal problem that we should tackle together, kind of. So there is a sense of burden sharing. And burden sharing idea is comparing population, right? And then funding, and GDP, and then what kind of country should take burden. And then I think burden is kind of offensive to think about the people, but still it's burden sharing is the kind of the sharing responsibility. For if there is a problem, then we should share the problem. And then that kind of the concept, so that Japan was kind of number one, nation state at that time. So Japan had to pay some and should accept more people, because money and then the power that you have to do something. So that kind of thing. Japan has been a huge donor to UNHCR, that the organization to help refugees. UN still. This is 2022, so Japan has been second or first donor to the UNHCR, but still donating a lot of money for that concept of burden sharing. And so Japan wanted to be a part of security, UN seat to be in powerful nation. And so Japan accepted the idea to work with the US and stuff. So Japan acceded the convention relating to the status of refugees in 1981, and then also the status relating protocol 1982. And so this brought the huge changes because there was no refugee admission, official refugee admission before this. But this, Carter administration pressure, and then also studying that, be a part of the refugee regime, Japan had to change the laws to admit refugees, and then residents, and then those insurance and all the laws that changed to that condition. And also there emerged the non-governmental organizations in Japan too to help. So it's like U.S. or other countries as well. And then there is like a organization called Association for Aid and Relief Japan, established to help refugees in Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, those former 3 Indo-Chinese countries, to admit and then resettle Japan. But still, it's really low rate that Japan accept people as refugees. And then there are about 20,000 people, applicants this thing, but accept maximum 60 people. So you can see how low that the applicants themselves are low, but still acceptance rate is so low. So that's why it comes back to the graph that I showed you before. But Syrian asylum status, it's becoming a little bit better, but still it's the number, if you compare to other countries, G7 countries, it's nothing. But still Japanese government are really proud of what we are doing, helping people. And so why is this kind of situation going on? Is because it's not protecting refugees, but more of guarding the border. So have to be specific about who is refugee, and then that to guard the border, there are difficult systems to go through. Refugee status application, you have to write in Japanese, all Japanese. So you really need help if think about that. And then so the strict requirements makes the low recognition rate after all. So why so strict? Because the abstract idea of persecution that has to be more specific in Japanese context, so that it has to be some sort of physical attack, and then you have to prove that actual kind of scar or damage that you get. So it's not psychological, but you have to be physical, and then physical in a sense that you have photo or recorded some evidence to show it. And there are a lot of challenges to prove that persecution. And then in Japan, it's not allowed to be in the interview with someone that help you out. So, and then you can't record the investigation. So that, what happened there is can be really stressful. but you cannot really prove according to this system. And the application process takes average 4 years. And then you can, if, first denial, after the first denial, you can get request for review. And then there are refugee examination counselors to help you, if you're a refugee and then, apply, but denied first time, second time, there should be, help from that. But from 2005, this refugee examination counselors comments at the system itself started, but this system has flaws. And why? Because one examination counselor, sadly, is honorary president. It was honorary president of AAL that I introduced as one of the NPO that established during the Cold War. She handled 20% of all cases. And imagine, it's like 1 year handling more than 1,000 cases to prove. And then it's impossible, right? So that means, high probability of fraud in the system. And then also the government using her to, make it justification that, she's saying this. And then, there aren't many reasons that, so she denies because that is, fake refugees. And so she said in the National Diet in 2021, we want to find and certify refugees, but can hardly find any. And so this has been Japan's government's justification for revisions of refugee law, make the refugee law more stricter to guard the border. So in that direction, Division of the Immigration Control and Refugee Recognition Act in June 2023. So last year, just passed the law. And what is happening now is, deportation should be taking place soon because refugee status applications to 2 per person. So if you do 3rd time, you're not gonna get 3rd time, and you're gonna be deported after that. So even though the system is there, but it's system to fail the refugee application. And so that this kind of dynamics makes the refugee and asylum seekers state number really low, a lower number than what most of its G7 counterparts admit in any single year. So total number is so low. So in conclusion, during the Cold War, refugee admission became an important political project in US foreign policy. With the end of Cold War, refugee admissions themselves has declined, and non-governmental organizations and groups became more active. Japan joined the Refugee Convention and began accepting refugees, though AL Japan honorary president claimed that there have been a lot of fake refugee applications, and that created in general in Japan that there are a small number of genuine refugees, and there are many fake refugees that try to get in Japan, even though there aren't so many to start with. And and created a system that supports the government's intention to keep the rate of approval low. So, wants to have the significance to be a U.S. ally, but at the same time wants to keep the number down. So, thank you so much for listening.